My mother, who was a former teacher at Douglas High School, we relocated here in October 1964. I was in the fourth grade. So with that, she taught English. I may elaborate quite a bit about her because that's the thing. She taught English at Douglas. We had two teachers who lived with us, Mrs. Franson, who taught the second grade, and Mrs. Smith, who eventually married and was turned to Mrs. Vincent. She taught eighth grade homework and Spanish. So within that, my life was, I had not English, teachers all around me, because also Mrs. Davis, who was a teacher at the county school, Gibson, room with us too. So I was in a house full of teachers all the time. And so we live really on Liberty Avenue, which is right behind Douglas, or parallel to it. And so it's a walk, but I used to be late every morning still walking. My mother had that track record. Please forgive me. But anyway, it was an awesome experience. I had my mother for 2 years, 9th and 10th grade English. 9th grade at Douglas and 10th grade at Hanley High School. Plus, when I was in elementary school and when school was out, class was out early for the elementary kids, I would go to my mother's class or during the summer, her class, and sit and do the same work they did, and I excelled at it because I was very hyper child and loved to talk quite a bit, so that could be an asset, but then again, it could be a burden too, people get used to you. But I had fond memories and joyous years at Douglas. Mrs. Wheeler, my mother was a very proud teacher, compassionate, humble, and all that. She did a lot, her legacy in this town, because my mother used to give socials, dinners, as they say, to help give scholarships to black students who had graduated, helped them go to college. And she did quite a few, a lot of churches. Anybody that came to her, she did. But she was not a monument, I can't find the word I want, but she was a set in the neighborhood of everybody knew Miss Wheeler, which was a long time here in this town. She passed. Trying not to get emotional, even though it's that. But like I said, she taught English, and prior to us coming here, she taught French at Morris College, but she taught English here, and I know it was a struggle somewhat for her too when integration came about and we transferred to Hanley, because she was teaching and operating from a different mindset of students, because you had to go along with the powers that be and with all an adjustment for everybody on both sides or all sides of the coin. But my mother is the biggest inspiration in my life for how she felt about life and carried and lived her life, and how she was a benefit to others in her life with her kindness and her compassion, willing to help anyone. And also, regardless, she always felt that, we're all human. Anybody make a mistake, but you don't have to stay there and lift yourself up and go on, hold your head proud. I know she has been an inspiration in quite a few people's lives who shared with me that how their mother, for certain challenges in their life, but how she helped them to pull themselves out of it and being a mentor to them. So my mother had a very good name here. And matter of fact, at her homegoing funeral, had a couple of the teachers and a principal to speak at, and said that she was, for back during that time, she was a warrior, from it. So she stood her ground for everything, and she pushed forward. I was be so I'm forever grateful for her memory in my life through that, and just as a mother in general, that unconditional love and that unconditional respect she has for other people, and to carry on, be all you can be. So that means a lot to me. My mother was deaf afraid of mice. And so, so when, I remember at Douglas, she was there, so they gave her a desk with no drawers in it. No, they ended up giving her one because what happened, she pulled out a drawer from the desk that was previously there, and it was a mouse in it, and she went running down the hall. But the funny part was one of the students, he's gone on, he's deceased now. He said, my mother turned around and ran out the door and ran in the hallway. He was at the blackboard, washing the blackboard. So when she started running, he ran too. So she get down the hall. She said, where are you going? He said, I don't know. You started running, so I ran too, you know. So then after they would give her a desk without drawers, because the desks, you know, they're being stored in the basement and down. You know, you can have those things. That's life, you know. But that's one of the funniest memories. I remember that story always, always. So I remember when we first relocated here, and I was in Mrs. Cross's fourth grade class. And I love Mrs. Cross, everyone, you know. She was kind of like no nonsense, but still was instilled her that wanting the best for her students and to push you to do your best. But I remember through my classes with Mrs. Marcus, home economics, which was a tremendous asset for us learning certain facets of life for us females back during that time in that generation of how to cook, how to sew, how to buy and plan a home, furniture, and things like that. Mrs. Smith, who later got married, Mrs. Vinson, so many, Mrs. Lett, who was a librarian at Douglas, Mrs. Oh, my mind went blank. She taught typing. I can't think her name. Anyway, Mr. Jasper was the band director. Also, Miss Cross, Miss Marguerite Washington Parks, who taught the 7th grade. I had her. Mrs. Cross, Mrs. Francis, Mrs. Jasper, Mr. Jasper's wife taught there also. Mrs. Barksdale, she was a substitute. Can't talk. Substitute teacher there. Who else? It was so many. I'm trying to think. I said Marcus. I had to go down each hallway to each classroom to remember Mr. Brooks, who was sharp teacher, Mrs. Ford, who was the cafeteria manager and prepared the food. Those are the ones I can recall right off, just because you gave me that challenge, and I'm overthinking, but yeah. Yes, there weren't, we didn't have a large graduation class, but that was the last year there at Douglas before integration, because midway through that year in 1964 or 5, some of the students left, went to Hanley, and then the rest of us remained to the following school year to start the school off fresh. But it was a very emotional time because we made our own little yearbooks and signed around for students, everybody to sign, to remember and to cherish those moments and seeing those people. You know, to walk those halls again different, it does bring back quite a bit.